The celebration had ended without warning, the way joy often does. One moment the house was full of sound, music beating against the walls, laughter spilling into every corner, footsteps crossing over one another, and the next it was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Heavy quiet. The kind that settles after too much emotion has passed through a place and left its mark behind. The bride sat alone. For the first time since morning, no one was touching her, guiding her, fixing her clothes, or reminding her to smile. The room still smelled of flowers and warm skin. Loose petals lay scattered on the floor like forgotten promises. Her jewelry rested on the table, each piece placed carefully, shining softly under a single dim light. Gold bangles, a necklace, earrings that had been praised all day. The music outside had faded into memory, but her body still felt its rhythm. Her ears rang with silence now, as if they were waiting for something to return. She felt strange in her own skin. Slowly she began to remove her bridal clothes. The heavy fabric slipped from her shoulders and pooled at her feet. Each layer she took off made her feel less like the bride everyone celebrated and more like herself again. Tired, quiet, bare. Her hands moved without thought, undoing clasps and ties she had worn since sunrise. When she bent down to remove her anklet, everything stopped. There was blood. Not dripping. Not fresh. Just a dark stain smeared along the delicate metal, thin but unmistakable. Her fingers froze inches away. For a moment she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her, tired from the long day, confused by the low light. She leaned closer. The stain did not disappear. Her heart began to pound, hard enough that she could feel it in her throat. She touched her ankle gently, searching for pain, for a cut, for any sign of injury. There was nothing. Her skin was smooth, unbroken, untouched. The blood did not make sense. She straightened slowly, her breath shallow now. The room felt smaller. The air felt thicker. She looked around, even though she knew she was alone. The wall stood still. The flowers said nothing. The night did not explain itself. The anklet trembled slightly in her hand. It had looked so beautiful earlier that day. It had been placed on her ankle with care, with blessings whispered over her. It was meant to protect her steps as she walked into a new life. Now it felt dangerous, like something sharp hidden inside something lovely. Questions rushed into her mind, but none stayed long enough to form answers. How had this happened? When? Why didn't she feel anything? Was it hers? Her chest tightened as a deeper feeling rose, fear mixed with instinct. She did not cry out. She did not call anyone. Instead, she stayed silent. The decision came from somewhere deep inside her, older than reason. Speaking felt wrong, dangerous, as if saying something now would tear open a night that was barely holding itself together. Whatever the truth was, it felt too heavy to release in the dark. Carefully she removed the anklet. The metal felt cold against her skin. She wrapped it in a clean cloth, hiding the stain from sight, then placed it at the bottom of her bag beneath layers of fabric and memory. She wiped her ankle again even though there was nothing left to clean. When she finally lay down, the silence pressed in from all sides. Her eyes stayed open. The beauty of the day felt distant now, like a story she had heard about someone else. The anklet, once a symbol of joy, had become something else entirely, a secret, a warning. She told herself she would think about it later. She told herself she would wait until morning. And in that waiting, the night closed around her, holding her silence tight. The anklet did not let her rest. Even with her eyes closed, she could feel its presence, hidden away but not gone. It sat heavy in her thoughts, louder than the silence around her. What once felt like a simple ornament now carried a weight she could not name. That anklet had a history. It was not bought quickly or chosen for fashion. It had been given with care, passed from one woman to another, carried through years of marriage, loss, and endurance. The elders said an anklet held a woman close to the earth, that it reminded her of her steps, her choices, her path forward. On a bride it meant protection, commitment, a promise that her journey would not be walked alone. Earlier that day she had felt proud when it was placed on her ankle. Hands had steadied her as the clasp was closed. Soft voices had spoken blessings she barely heard through the rush of the moment. The metal had been cool at first, then warm against her skin. She remembered smiling, feeling chosen, feeling safe. Now the memory felt distant. The blood on the anklet did not just stain the metal, it stained the meaning. It felt like a quiet break in something sacred. A mark that did not belong. A sign that something meant to protect her had instead witnessed harm. She replayed the day in her mind, searching for a moment when it could have happened. The crowd. The rituals. The constant movement. Someone stepping too close. Someone brushing past her ankle. An unnoticed scrape. A small accident that meant nothing. She tried to accept these explanations, but her body refused to relax. The blood had not been random. It had felt deliberate even if she did not understand why. The anklet, resting now in darkness, felt like it was holding a truth that had not yet found its voice. A silent witness to something unnamed. She wondered if silence was what women before her had chosen too. Maybe they had learned, as she had, that some truths were dangerous when spoken too soon. That survival sometimes looked like waiting. That strength did not always mean confrontation. It sometimes meant endurance. Her silence did not feel like fear. It felt like protection. She was protecting the night from breaking open. Protecting herself from questions she was not ready to answer. Protecting a life that had just begun, fragile and untested. Still, unease settled deep in her chest. She imagined the anklet again, clean but changed. Even without the blood, it would never be the same. Its meaning had shifted. It was no longer just a symbol of commitment, it was a reminder of vulnerability, of how easily beauty could hold danger inside it. The thought made her breath catch. She turned onto her side, pressing her palm against the mattress, grounding herself. The room remained quiet. Nothing moved. Nothing explained itself. She understood then that the anklet had become more than jewelry. It had become a question she would eventually have to face. A question that would not disappear just because she chose silence tonight. But for now she stayed quiet. Not because she was weak. Because she was trying to survive the moment intact. The night was still deep. Dawn was far away. And until light returned to the world, the anklet would remain hidden, holding its secret, waiting for the right time to speak. Sleep refused to come. The bride lay still, her body stretched beside another, yet her mind felt wide awake and restless. The mattress dipped gently with each breath beside her, a steady rise and fall that should have been comforting. Instead, it made her more aware of how alone she felt in her thoughts. The house began to change as the night deepened. Sounds grew sharper in the silence. A door somewhere creaked softly, though no one walked through it. The wind brushed against the windows, slow and uneven, like fingers testing a lock. From time to time, the floor shifted with a faint crack, the kind of sound an old house makes when it settles into itself. Each noise made her heart jump. She kept her eyes open, staring into the darkness, counting breaths that were not her own. The man beside her slept without effort, his face relaxed, untouched by worry. She studied him quietly, searching for something she could not explain. A sign. A shadow. Anything that might tell her whether she truly knew the person she had married. She had looked at him all day, but never like this. In the soft darkness, familiar features felt unfamiliar. His closed eyes revealed nothing. His calm felt distant, almost unreal. She wondered what he was dreaming about, if dreams ever carried guilt, if sleep could hide truths the way silence did. Her thoughts drifted back to the wedding day. Small moments returned without invitation. A pause before a smile. A look that lingered too long on something she had not noticed at the time. A moment when his hand had pulled away just slightly, as if distracted. None of it had mattered then. Surrounded by celebration, everything felt harmless, ordinary. Now those moments replayed themselves differently. She questioned her memory, unsure if fear was reshaping the past or if she had missed something important. The line between imagination and instinct blurred, and that frightened her most of all. The room felt crowded with thoughts, yet empty of answers. She shifted slightly, careful not to wake him. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind refused to slow. Every time she closed her eyes, the image of the anklet returned. Clean metal. Dark stain. Hidden away but not forgotten. Time stretched painfully. Minutes felt like hours. She listened for signs of morning, anything that might tell her the night was moving forward. But the darkness remained thick and still. Dawn felt impossibly far, like a promise made to someone else. Her silence grew heavier with each passing moment. At first it had been instinct. Now it felt like a choice she was actively making. Each second she stayed quiet added weight to that choice, turning it into something deliberate. Something she would have to carry no matter what the morning brought. She wondered what would happen if she spoke now. Would the night shatter? Would answers appear, or would everything only grow more complicated? The risk felt too great. The quiet, uncomfortable as it was, still felt safer than the unknown. So she waited. Her eyes traced the shapes of the room, the outline of furniture, the faint glow of moonlight on the wall. Everything looked ordinary, unchanged by the storm inside her. That contrast made her chest tighten. How could the world look so calm when something felt so wrong? She realized then how deeply alone silence could make a person feel. Even lying beside someone sharing the same space, the same bed, she felt separate. Cut off by thoughts she could not share, by fear she could not explain. The night wrapped around her, holding her in a quiet that felt both protective and cruel. She breathed slowly, trying to steady herself. The anklet stayed hidden. The truth stayed locked away. And the night continued its slow, unforgiving stretch toward morning. She watched. She waited. And with every passing moment, the silence pressed deeper into her bones. As the night stretched on, her thoughts drifted backward, pulled by memories she had not invited but could not push away. When the present offered no answers, her mind returned to what it already knew. She had learned early in life that love did not always protect. There were moments from her past that still lived quietly inside her, moments shaped by loss, disappointment, and silence. Times when trust had been given freely and taken without warning. Times when speaking up had led not to comfort but to conflict. She remembered the feeling of realizing that truth could change everything, sometimes for the worse. Those lessons had stayed with her. They had shaped the way she loved, the way she chose peace over confrontation, the way she learned to swallow questions before they could cause damage. Stability had always mattered more to her than certainty. Calm mattered more than being right. That was why she had survived. Lying there in the dark, she understood that her silence tonight did not come from nowhere. It came from years of learning how fragile relationships could be. How easily words could break what had taken so long to build. She thought of the people she had watched endure quietly. Women who carried their burdens with grace because they believed holding things together mattered more than pulling them apart. She had admired their strength, even when she did not fully understand the cost. Now she felt that cost settling into her own chest. The blood on the anklet did not feel like a new wound. It felt like an old fear finding a new shape. It reminded her of every time she had sensed something was wrong but chose not to look too closely. Every time she had told herself that time would fix what honesty might destroy. Her heart ached with the weight of that realization. She had entered marriage believing in trust, in shared paths, in a future built on understanding. Yet here she was, already holding a secret. Already balancing truth against safety. The thought frightened her more than the blood itself. She wondered if this was how it always began, not with loud betrayal but with quiet unease. Her mind returned to earlier years, to moments when she had been younger and more certain. Back then she believed love meant openness, that honesty was proof of care. Experience had softened that belief, turning it into something more cautious. Love, she had learned, also meant knowing when not to speak. But tonight that belief felt unstable. The silence she had chosen felt heavier than any argument she could imagine. It pressed against her ribs, making it hard to breathe deeply. She asked herself what she was truly afraid of. The answer came slowly, unwilling to be named. She was afraid of what the truth might demand from her. If she spoke, she would have to act. She would have to face consequences she could not predict. Her life, just beginning to take shape, could be pulled apart before it had the chance to settle. And so she stayed quiet. But something inside her shifted. The blood on the anklet was no longer just a mystery of the night. It felt connected to her past, to every lesson that had taught her to protect herself by staying silent. The realization made her feel exposed, as if the night itself was asking her to choose differently this time. She lay there, eyes open, listening to the steady breathing beside her. Her past had taught her how to survive. But it had not taught her how to live with secrets. As the hours passed, the weight of what she carried grew heavier, pressing against memories, against fear, against the fragile hope that this marriage would be different. Somewhere deep inside she felt the first quiet question forming. How long could silence really protect her? She turned her head slightly and looked at him again. In the dim light, his face seemed softer than it had during the day. The sharp edges of expression were gone, replaced by the calm of sleep. His breathing was slow and steady, unaware of the storm unfolding inches away from him. This was the man she had promised her life to. The man everyone said she was lucky to have. And yet, in this moment he felt unfamiliar. She searched her memory for the version of him she knew. The one who laughed easily. The one who listened when she spoke. The one who had held her hand with certainty, as if the future was something he had already planned to protect. Those memories were real. She did not doubt that. But tonight, doubt had found a space to sit beside love. She studied the small details she had never questioned before. The way he sometimes went quiet when conversations turned serious. The way he avoided certain topics with a careful smile. The way he carried himself with confidence, but not always with openness. These things had once felt harmless, even comforting. Now they felt like pieces of a puzzle she had never tried to complete. She wondered how much of him she truly knew. How much anyone ever knew another person even after vows were spoken. Marriage, she realized, did not suddenly make two people transparent to one another. It only promised that they would keep trying. Her chest tightened as another thought surfaced. What if she had mistaken familiarity for understanding? The idea frightened her. She had trusted him not because she knew everything about him, but because she believed she did not need to. Trust had felt like a gift freely given, not something that required constant proof. Now trust felt fragile. She remembered moments from their time together, small silences she had filled for him, questions she had chosen not to ask because the answers might complicate things. She had told herself that love did not need interrogation. That peace was built by focusing on what felt good, not on what felt uncertain. But uncertainty had a way of returning. The blood on the anklet sat between them now, even if he did not know it. A quiet line drawn across the night. She wondered if speaking would change the way he looked at her. Or worse, confirm something she was not ready to accept. Her love for him did not disappear. It remained, steady and real, but it was no longer alone. Fear stood beside it, close enough to touch. Fear of what she might hear. Fear of what she might learn. Fear of what silence might already be hiding. She asked herself who her silence was protecting. Was it him, giving him time before being faced with something difficult? Was it herself, holding on to the fragile calm of this night a little longer? Or was it protecting something darker, something that should not be shielded at all? The question made her stomach turn. She imagined herself waking him, speaking the words out loud, watching his face change as understanding spread across it. The image filled her with dread. Words had power. Once spoken, they could not be taken back. They could open doors that refused to close again. The risk felt enormous. She had always believed that love meant facing things together. But what if facing this meant breaking what they had just built? What if honesty demanded more courage than she had left after such a long day? Her body felt heavy with exhaustion. Emotion pressed down on her chest, making each breath feel deliberate. She wanted to believe that waiting was the right choice. That morning would bring clarity. That light would soften whatever truth waited for her. Still, she could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The man beside her was no longer just her husband. He was also a question. A question she was not ready to ask but could no longer ignore. She turned away from him, facing the darkness on the other side of the bed. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. The silence between them stretched wider, filled with things unsaid. Love was still there. But now, it lived beside fear, uncertainty, and the heavy awareness that knowing someone fully might be the most dangerous thing of all. She stayed quiet. And in that quiet, the distance between who she thought he was and who he might be continued to grow. The house did not sleep. As the night deepened, it seemed to lean inward, listening. Every hallway felt longer than it had during the day. Every corner held a shadow that did not belong to the light. The walls, once bright with celebration, now carried the quiet weight of what had been witnessed and not spoken. She moved slowly, careful with each step. The floor was cool beneath her feet, sending a chill up her legs. She held her breath as she crossed the room, listening for any sign that the stillness might break. Nothing did. The house remained silent, but it was not empty. It felt aware, as if it knew what she was carrying and chose not to reveal it. She reached for her bag and opened it just enough to pull out the wrapped anklet. The cloth unfolded softly in her hands. The metal caught a faint trace of light, clean now, free of the stain she had scrubbed away earlier. Still, she could not look at it for long. Even without the blood, it no longer felt harmless. It felt like evidence. She went to the basin and rinsed her hands again, though they were already clean. The sound of water felt too loud, echoing through the quiet rooms. She turned the tap off quickly, her heart racing, half expecting someone to appear in the doorway. No one came. Mirrors lined the hallway, reflecting her face as she passed. She avoided looking too closely. Reflections had a way of revealing things she was not ready to see. Her shadow moved with her, stretching and shrinking with the light, reminding her that she could not escape herself. The house seemed to follow her steps. Doors stood closed, holding the night behind them. Curtains shifted slightly with the breeze, whispering in a language she could not understand. Even the air felt heavy, thick with unspoken stories. She wondered how many secrets these walls had held before hers. She tucked the anklet away again, deeper this time, hidden beneath layers meant to protect it from sight. Her hands shook as she closed the bag. The act felt final, like sealing something away that would not stay buried forever. Fear followed her back to the room. She lay down again, pulling the covers close as if fabric could shield her from truth. The man beside her did not stir. His sleep remained untouched by the tension that filled the house. She listened to his breathing and matched her own to it, hoping the rhythm would calm her. It did not. The silence pressed in, mirroring the silence inside her. The house held her secret, but it also held her captive. Every quiet moment reminded her of what she was not saying. Every shadow felt like a question waiting to be asked. She realized then that discovery was not her greatest fear. Truth was. Truth would demand movement. Decisions. Change. Silence allowed her to stay still, suspended between before and after. The house understood that. It gave her the time she asked for, wrapping her in its quiet awareness. Outside, the night remained deep. Dawn was still hours away. And until it arrived, the house would keep her secret, watching as she waited, breathing carefully, hoping that the silence she had chosen would not become something she could never escape. The silence began to break her down. At first, it had felt like a shield, something she could hide behind until she understood what had happened. But as the hours passed, it became something heavier. Something that pressed against her chest and made it hard to breathe fully. Her body felt tired in a way sleep could not fix. Her thoughts slowed, then tangled, then looped back on themselves. She stared into the darkness, no longer sure where one thought ended and another began. Her head throbbed gently. Her limbs felt weak as if the night itself were draining her. She shifted again, trying to find a position that felt safe, but nothing worked. Every movement reminded her that she was still awake, still waiting, still holding something she did not want to carry alone. The anklet returned to her mind, sharper now. She could picture it clearly, folded into the cloth, hidden but present. Cleaned of blood, yet forever marked in her memory. She wondered how something so small could feel so unbearable. How a single detail could pull apart the calm she had tried so hard to protect. A question formed slowly, pushing past her fear. Was silence protecting her, or was it trapping her? The thought unsettled her deeply. She had always believed that staying quiet kept things from getting worse. That silence gave problems time to fade. But this felt different. The longer she waited, the heavier the secret became. It no longer felt neutral. It felt active. As if her silence itself was doing something. She wondered if choosing not to speak made her part of whatever had happened. The idea frightened her. Her chest tightened as she imagined the future stretching forward, built on this quiet night. Could she live with that? Could she look back on this moment and accept the choice she was making now? The questions crowded her mind, leaving no space for rest. Her body reacted before her thoughts could settle. Her hands trembled slightly beneath the covers. Her stomach felt tight, uneasy. A wave of exhaustion washed over her, followed by a sharp rush of emotion she struggled to name. Fear, guilt, anger. All tangled together, refusing to be sorted. She closed her eyes, hoping the darkness would help her think more clearly. Instead, memories pressed closer. She thought of the anklet again, not as jewelry but as a symbol. It had been placed on her ankle to guide her forward, to bless her steps. Now it felt like it was pointing her toward a truth she was avoiding. A reminder that some things could not be undone by hiding them away. She realized then that silence had consequences. Not immediate ones. Not loud ones. But quiet consequences that settled slowly, shaping the path ahead without asking permission. By saying nothing, she was choosing something, even if she did not yet know what that choice would cost her. The thought made her chest ache. She turned her head toward the window. The darkness there felt thinner somehow, as if the night were slowly loosening its grip. She did not see light yet, but she sensed change coming. The world would not stay still for her. Morning would arrive whether she was ready or not. And with it, the need to decide. Her silence, once instinctive, now felt fragile. Cracks had formed in it, spreading wider with every passing minute. She could feel them even if no one else could. The quiet she clung to was beginning to split under the weight of everything she had pushed inside it. She understood then that waiting was no longer the same as hiding. Waiting was becoming a deadline. Soon she would have to choose whether to carry this alone or let it change the shape of her life openly. The realization did not bring relief. It brought a steady, aching pressure that settled deep in her bones. She breathed in slowly. Dawn was coming. And the silence, once so carefully held, was no longer whole. The first signs of morning arrived quietly. They did not rush in or announce themselves. They slipped into the room the way truth often does, soft, unavoidable, patient. A thin line of pale light appeared at the edge of the window, barely noticeable at first. The darkness loosened its hold, retreating inch by inch as if it knew its time was ending. The bride felt it before she saw it. Something inside her shifted. Her body, tense for hours, reacted to the change with a mix of relief and fear. Her shoulders sagged slightly, as if she had been holding herself together by force alone. At the same time, her stomach tightened, warning her that the night's protection was fading. Night had given her cover. Daylight would ask questions. She listened as the world began to stir. A bird called out in the distance, unsure but persistent. Somewhere outside, a door opened and closed. The house was waking, slowly reclaiming its ordinary sounds, unaware of the weight the night had left behind. Her heart beat faster now. She lay still, watching the light grow stronger, feeling exposed in a way she had not felt before. Darkness had hidden her thoughts, her fear, her secret. Morning light felt honest, unforgiving. It did not allow things to stay hidden for long. Beside her, the steady breathing continued. She glanced toward him again, her chest tightening with emotion she could not separate anymore. Love, fear, loyalty, doubt, they all lived together now, tangled beyond easy understanding. The coming day would not untangle them gently. She knew that. Her body reacted in small, quiet ways. Her hands shook slightly beneath the covers. Her mouth felt dry. A dull ache settled behind her eyes, the kind that came from too little sleep and too much feeling. She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself, trying to gather strength she was not sure she had. She had made it through the night. That alone felt like an achievement. But surviving the night was not the same as surviving what came after it. The blood on the anklet, the silence she had chosen, the truth waiting just beyond the light, all of it stood between her and the person she would be once morning fully arrived. She understood then that whatever had happened was already changing her. There would be no returning to who she had been before she noticed that stain. No pretending the night had been simple or harmless. Even if the world outside looked the same, she did not. The light spread across the floor, touching the flowers left behind from the celebration. Their colors looked softer now, less perfect. Reality stripped away some of the magic the night had held. She took a slow breath. This was the moment she had been waiting for, even if she had feared it. The moment when waiting ended and choosing began. The dawn did not promise answers, but it demanded honesty. Her chest rose and fell as she prepared herself for what came next. The night was nearly over. And with the arrival of morning, she knew one truth clearly: whatever she decided to do now would shape everything that followed. The moment did not arrive with noise. It came quietly, the way the dawn had, slow, careful, impossible to stop once it began. The bride sat up, the light now strong enough to show the room as it truly was. What looked soft and forgiving at night appeared sharper in the morning. Lines were clearer. Colors less kind. Nothing was hidden anymore. She felt exposed. Her heart beat fast, but her thoughts were strangely steady. The long night had worn her down, stripped away the fear that once held her silent. What remained was a tired kind of courage, the kind that comes when holding the truth inside hurts more than letting it out. She reached for the bag. Her hands moved with purpose now, even though they trembled. The cloth unfolded slowly, revealing the anklet. It lay in her palm, light and ordinary, almost mocking in how harmless it looked. If someone else saw it, they might see nothing wrong at all. But she knew. The memory of the blood returned instantly. The shock. The confusion. The fear that had wrapped itself around her chest and refused to let go. She realized then that the night had not been about the anklet alone. It had been about what it led her to see. She looked toward the man beside her. He was awake now, his eyes open, his expression unreadable in the new light. The space between them felt different, thinner, more fragile. She understood that whatever she said next would change that space forever. There was no perfect way to begin. So she did not search for one. She let the truth come out as it was, uneven, heavy, honest. She revealed the anklet. She revealed the blood. She revealed the night she had spent awake, watching, waiting, questioning everything she thought she knew. As the truth unfolded, the air in the room changed. The calm he had carried with him faltered. Something flickered across his face, surprise first, then something deeper. Not anger. Not violence. But fear. The kind that comes from being seen when you hope to remain hidden. The truth behind the blood was not loud or cruel. It was unsettling in a quieter way. It came from an act meant to stay buried. A moment handled poorly. A choice made out of panic rather than harm. Something that should have been addressed immediately, but instead was ignored, pushed aside, hidden in the hope that it would disappear on its own. The blood was proof that it had not. The realization settled heavily between them. What had been done was not unforgivable, but it was not small either. It revealed a side of him she had not known, a side capable of hiding, capable of choosing silence over responsibility. Her chest tightened as she absorbed what this meant. This was not the kind of truth that shattered everything in one blow. It was the kind that cracked foundations slowly, forcing you to question what you stood on. It asked uncomfortable questions about trust, about honesty, about the future they had just begun. Love stood in the room with them, but it did not stand alone. It was joined by disappointment, by uncertainty, by the ache of realizing that knowing someone fully meant seeing parts you might wish you never had to face. She felt a wave of emotion rise inside her, relief tangled with grief. Relief that the silence was over. Grief for the night she could never undo. For the version of the beginning she had imagined and lost. Her body reacted before her thoughts did. Her shoulders slumped, the tension finally releasing. Her eyes burned, but she held herself steady. She did not want to fall apart. Not now. She had already survived the hardest part, the waiting. What followed was not shouting. Not chaos. It was stillness. A heavy, honest stillness where both of them had to sit with what had been said. Where excuses held no weight. Where intentions mattered less than consequences. She understood then that love was being tested, not in a dramatic moment but in this quiet aftermath. Tested on whether it could hold truth without breaking. Whether it could survive discomfort, accountability, and change. The anklet rested between them. No longer a secret. No longer a question. It had done its work. The revelation did not give her peace, but it gave her clarity. She no longer felt lost in the dark. The night had ended. The truth stood in the light, imperfect and real. Whatever came next would be shaped by this moment. By the choice to speak. By the courage it took to let the dawn see everything the night had tried to hide. The truth did not explode. It settled. It moved through the room slowly, like dust after something heavy had fallen. Nothing looked broken at first glance. The bed remained where it was. The flowers still lay on the floor. Morning light continued to spread across the walls as if the world had not noticed the shift that had taken place. But everything had changed. The space between them felt different now, no longer filled with mystery but with weight. The kind that comes after something has been named and can no longer be avoided. She felt it in her chest, steady and aching, pressing down with every breath she took. What followed was not immediate resolution. It was confusion. Thoughts moved slowly, carefully, as if stepping on uncertain ground. Each realization landed one after another, forming a quiet chain of consequences. The night of silence. The morning of truth. The understanding that neither could be undone. She felt guilt rise unexpectedly. Not just for what had happened but for the hours she had stayed quiet. For the way she had protected the calm of the night instead of protecting herself. She wondered if things might have unfolded differently had she spoken sooner. If waiting had softened the truth, or sharpened it. At the same time, another feeling surfaced. Relief. The secret was no longer hers alone. The burden she had carried through the night had been set down, even if it had not disappeared. That alone gave her a strange sense of steadiness. She had chosen honesty and that choice mattered. Trust, however, did not return so easily. It shifted shape. She looked at him and saw not just the man she loved, but the man who had hidden something important. The realization did not erase her feelings, but it changed how they lived inside her. Love no longer felt simple. It carried caution now. Awareness. He too seemed changed. The ease he once carried had faded, replaced by something quieter and heavier. Accountability sat on his shoulders, visible in the way he moved, the way he avoided her eyes before meeting them again. The truth had asked something of him and he could not step away from it. The anklet lay between them, no longer wrapped or hidden. She picked it up again, turning it slowly in her fingers. The metal caught the light just as it had the day before. It looked the same, but its meaning had transformed completely. It was no longer just a symbol of blessing. It was proof. Of fear. Of choice. Of the cost of silence. She realized then that nothing would return to how it had been. The beginning they imagined had already shifted. Their story would carry this moment with it, woven into every step that followed. The future was still there, but it would not be built on innocence. And maybe that was not a failure. Maybe it was simply truth arriving early. The hours that followed moved slowly. Ordinary things happened. Movement, small tasks, quiet moments, but everything felt deliberate, careful. Each action carried awareness. Each glance held meaning. The world had not stopped, but it had grown heavier, as if asking them both to move with intention now. She felt tired, deeply so. Not just from the lack of sleep, but from the emotional work the night had demanded. Yet beneath that exhaustion was something solid. A sense that she had faced something difficult and survived it. That mattered more than she had expected. Loss lingered quietly. The loss of ease. The loss of certainty. The loss of a beginning untouched by doubt. She allowed herself to feel it without judgment. Grief did not always come from endings. Sometimes it came from changed expectations. Accountability too lingered, not as punishment but as responsibility. For both of them. For the silence that had stretched too long. For the truth that now required care, patience, and honesty moving forward. She understood that love alone would not fix what had been revealed. But love, paired with truth, might still be enough to rebuild something real. The anklet slipped from her fingers and rested quietly on the table. It no longer felt like a warning. It felt like a marker. A reminder of the night everything shifted and the morning that followed. A reminder that nothing returned to how it was, but something honest had taken its place. Forgiveness did not arrive suddenly. It did not enter the room with certainty or relief. It hovered instead, just beyond reach, waiting to be understood. The bride felt its presence like a question rather than an answer. Forgiveness, she realized, was not something she could give just because it was expected of her. It was something that had to be earned, by truth, by effort, by time. She sat quietly, letting the weight of everything settle. Her strength surprised her. It did not come from pushing her feelings aside or pretending she was untouched by what had happened. It came from allowing herself to feel everything fully. The fear, the disappointment, the sadness, the love that still lived inside her, complicated and bruised but real. She understood now that endurance alone was not strength. Silence had taught her that lesson. Real strength came from honesty, from facing discomfort instead of avoiding it, from naming what hurt instead of hiding it. She had done that. No matter what came next, that truth belonged to her. The space between them remained fragile. Trust did not break all at once, and it would not heal all at once either. It existed now in pieces, some intact, some cracked, some still uncertain. She could see the effort forming in him, the awareness that words alone would not repair what had been shaken. Forgiveness, if it came, would not erase the past. It would sit beside it. She thought about what forgiveness truly meant. It was not forgetting. It was not excusing. It was not pretending that the blood on the anklet had never existed. Forgiveness, she realized, was a choice to stop letting the wound define every step forward. But choice required readiness. And she was still learning what she was ready for. Love had changed shape. It was no longer the simple belief that everything would work out because it always had. It was something more deliberate now. More grounded. Love had become a decision, one that needed care, boundaries, and honesty to survive. She knew there was also another possibility. Fracture. The understanding that some breaks could not be repaired without losing yourself in the process. That holding on too tightly could cause more harm than letting go. The thought scared her, but it no longer felt impossible. She gave herself permission to consider both paths. Forgiveness or fracture. Neither one made her weak. Both required courage. She felt something steady inside her chest, a quiet self-respect that had not been there before. She had spoken when it mattered. She had chosen truth over comfort. Whatever came next would be built on that foundation. Healing, she knew, would not be clean or quick. It would come in small moments. In effort repeated. In accountability shown through action, not words. In trust rebuilt slowly, if it was rebuilt at all. She allowed herself to breathe deeply for the first time since the night began. There was no rush now. The future did not demand an answer immediately. It only demanded that she stay honest, with herself first and then with him. Forgiveness, if it came, would come from that place. She looked once more at the anklet resting nearby. It no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a reminder of her own clarity. Whatever she chose, whether to rebuild or to release, she would do it without silence. Without fear guiding her steps. She had learned something essential. Love could survive truth. But only if truth was allowed to speak. The sun rose fully, spilling light into the room and washing away the last shadows of night. What had once felt hidden and heavy now stood clearly in view. Morning did not rush them. It arrived steadily, as if giving space for everything to settle into its rightful place. The bride stood near the window, the anklet resting in her hands. In the daylight, the metal gleamed softly. It looked beautiful again, but different. The night had changed how she saw it, just as it had changed how she saw herself. This small circle of metal had carried her through joy, fear, silence, and truth. It no longer belonged to the person she had been before. She turned it slowly between her fingers. The anklet had once symbolized a beginning filled with hope, untouched by doubt. Now it symbolized something deeper. Awareness, trust, the courage to face what was uncomfortable rather than hide from it. It held the memory of the night she chose to speak, even when silence felt easier. She did not rush to put it back on. Instead, she carried it outside. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of morning. Birds moved freely across the sky, unaware of the quiet transformation taking place below. The world continued, steady and unbothered, reminding her that life did not stop for fear or pain. She paused, letting the sunlight warm her face. She thought of the woman she had been at the start of the night, careful, uncertain, willing to hold everything inside to keep the peace. That woman had survived many things, but she had also learned to shrink herself in the process. She was not that woman anymore. The night had taught her something essential. Silence could protect for a moment, but truth protected for a lifetime. Facing reality had cost her comfort, but it had given her clarity. And clarity felt like freedom. She lowered her hand and looked at the anklet one last time. Whether it would be worn again, passed on, or set aside did not matter as much as what it represented now. It was no longer just a piece of jewelry tied to tradition. It was a marker of change. A reminder that her steps forward would be taken with awareness, not fear. She placed the anklet down gently. The choice was deliberate. Not an ending. Not a rejection. Just an acknowledgement that some symbols must evolve just as people do. The anklet had served its purpose. It had led her through the darkest part of the night and into the truth of morning. She took a slow, steady breath. Behind her, life continued, uncertain, imperfect, honest. Whatever came next would not be easy, but it would be real. And for the first time, that felt like enough. She turned toward the light, her posture relaxed, her steps steady. The dawn had not promised happiness, but it had given her something better. The courage to face reality without silence. And with that, she stepped forward, no longer afraid of what the day might reveal.